Okay, welcome back, guys. My name is Ninetailedbrushw, and we're watching Demonslayer again. It's gonna be another solo reaction episode. We had the actual, well, not the actual, but the older brother of Daki, make an appearance, and we had Tengen showing up. That was one of the big things that happened last episode, and so it seems like this Upper Moon demon is like 2-in-1 or something, like a 2-in-1 demon. It looks like they're siblings or something like that. And I predicted like this episode is probably going to be like the hardcore episode, possibly, because it seems like we're building up to a fight between Tengen and this demon siblings, and possibly we had Zenitsu and Inosuke coming up, so maybe they can help him out. Could be like a 3v2 or something like that. We have Tanjiro and Nezuko basically out of the running because they are they're kind of like exhausted or whatnot from the previous battle. But yeah, hopefully we get to see some crazy Tengen fighting this time around. I'm excited to see him like in serious mode. So what I had to say. Oh yeah, full-length reaction is up on Patreon. Next week's reaction is up on Patreon. And then for copyright reasons, there's going to be a link in the description where you can click that and go see our like actual reaction, or my actual reaction, and then you can come back here and see what I think about the episode. I mean, that was really clean animation this episode. I mean, the fight sequences. The one thing I really like is the way that Tengen utilizes his sort of like his I don't know what type of weapon it is. It's kind of like it's got that chain in the middle, right? It reminds me kind of like of the ninja weapons, but it's got the two swords. But the way that he kind of uses it, it's not like a normal sword. He kind of swings it around and things like that. He kind of like mixes in a sort of like a different sort of like martial arts or fighting style with his weapon, right? It's not like a straightforward sword technique or whatnot. The like animating that is it's got to be very difficult. I mean, you're having to think about like the physics of like how the blade kind of moves with the sword, with the swings, kind of like it's not like, it's not as straightforward as a sword, right? You're not going to be like swinging and the blade kind of just moves where you're swinging. He's kind of like twisting it and spinning it, and as he's moving his body to like, utilize that momentum. It's very cool. I really enjoyed it, especially in those fast-paced sequences. It's just so epic. The way that it like, starts in close and it goes further out as he's like fighting him. Just awesome. Just freaking awesome. I really love that kind of stuff. That fast-paced sort of action, and the complexity of like the moves and stuff. It's really cool. Getting like sort of away from the animation and just talking more about the plot and story. So we got a little bit of a background with Tengen, just a little bit. We already knew that he was from a shinobi family, and like that sort of like, that hardcore, brutal sort of training that shinobi kind of go through, and how they kind of like will sacrifice themselves and their comrades in order to complete the mission. That sort of mindset does sort of like bleed through each of like any sort of story about like shinobi. That's kind of like how the typical or stereotypical shinobi kind of is. I like that his father was a certain way, and he was very indifferent about a lot of things and trained them like super hard, and his younger brother ended up being like him. And I like the fact that we see him now as this very, well, flashy guy, right? And we can see it's because of, you know, his desire to be different from his younger brother and his father, because he sees what it does to them, right? The fact that his younger brother sacrificed his loved ones, or was willing to, I don't remember exactly what it said. He saw that and realized that, like, that's not what he wanted to do, right? He did not want to, if that sort of like mindset and philosophy pushes him to make those decisions where he was willing to sacrifice lives for the sake of whatever, he did not want to do that. So he strayed away from becoming that sort of like person, that sort of personality, and he became more gaudy, more like flashy. And we saw him, he spoke to his wives and he said, you know, I don't want you guys to put yourselves in danger, or like basically kill yourselves for the sake of the mission. I want you guys, your top priority is to basically come home, right? And it's cool because he's just trying to he's really trying to kind of separate himself from like his family, because he saw what it kind of like did to them. And then also I want to touch up on this little line that he said. I forgot exactly what it was, but he said that, you know, if you look at me as a really talented person, then you must have been living like a very sheltered life, basically, is what he was saying. Because what's surprising this episode is we get a little insight as to what he really thinks about himself. And it seems that he actually is a little, he's not as confident in himself than he would like other people to think he is. He's actually a little more like aware of his weaknesses than I thought, kind of. And it seems like he thinks himself to be not talented, and, you know, maybe not as strong as some of the other Hashira even, right? He was saying like he can't be like Rengoku, you know? And I think it's like he looks up to him. It's like he wants to be that sort of like hero, that sort of person that like is willing to save everyone, you know, or can save everyone. I think that line was really cool because it sort of like, it showed that he actually, you know, he does think of himself as maybe weaker than he actually, you know, puts on display. Yeah, and him calling him sheltered is like, bro, you haven't seen the world, you know? There's so many people in the world. The fact that you're calling me some sort of talented genius is very telling. But it's cool because in the end, like during this fight, we do see that he ends up being like Rengoku. That sort of bravado that he puts on, even if it is a bravado, right? The purpose of it being that he is the leader and he needs to instill confidence in, you know, our other members, basically, our Tanjiro, Inosuke, Zenitsu. Like, he can't be the one down on one knee, right? And that's cool. It's in the end, even if it is though, the fact that it is like him pushing himself further than he should is actually true bravery, right? And we see that sort of like Rengoku shine through him, even though he doesn't think himself to be like him. in that moment he is like him, right? He's pushing himself for others, and I like that also. It's like he kind of figures out that like this is something that he's willing to die for. You know, he's willing to kind of like fight to the death in this moment, you know. And I feel like one of his things was like, you know, I don't want people to like put their lives over the mission, but it's like he realizes that this is like like there's some things that are like worth it, right? Which is very interesting. It's like he's finding out more about like himself and like this, I don't know, the truth of the matter at hand, kind of. It's very interesting. I really like his character. Just also another little thing was his little bombs when he was, I feel like it was his little bombs. I'm not sure actually now that I think about it. It could have been like an aesthetic sort of choice, but when he was using that one move where he was spinning his blades and it seemed like they were like fireworks, I kind of like that because, like, you know, a lot of times you would think like you know, I don't know, his weapons would be a little more like discreet or subtle, even if he is, you know, claiming to be very flashy and stuff. You would still think like, okay, but his weapons are still more shinobi oriented, but they're basically like fireworks. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then we got a little bit more of we got Zenitsu and Inosuke, and a little bit more of Tanjiro, right? I wasn't expecting him to fight. I'm glad that we got the other two to fight because it's always cool to see both of them in action. Zenitsu's entrance was really cool, and it's very cool to see him in like this sort of like serious mode, right? And it's him. It's actually him, you know. And when he said that line, it's like, even though he might joke a lot about trying to like, you know, protect the girls or whatnot, and you know, he gets all like, I don't know, like crazy if you're like, you know, anything about the girls, right? But his sort of like real self, I feel like kind of shines through when he's sleeping, right? And we see that like anytime he's sleeping, things that he says, it's like he's dreaming, right? And it's like what he really truly thinks like kind of shines through. And I like the fact that he goes back to that moment where Daki was like pulling on that girl's ear, and he was like, yeah, you need to apologize for that, you know. And it's like, you can't treat them like, you know, they're just like objects, right? And I like that Daki also responds and like, you know, she feels like those that aren't beautiful shouldn't even live, and the people that, you know, treated me like an object or garbage, right, we're gonna do back to them, basically. That's like her or their philosophy, or, you know, that's like their code that they kind of follow, which is, it's interesting. I kind of like that as like villains, you know. And then of course we got Tanjiro basically, you know, helping out Tengen. I like that. I forgot what I don't even know if they said it, like the older brother or the brother's name, the demon. I like that he was able to figure out that he wasn't actually like an apprentice under Tengen, because their moves weren't in sync, right? And then but like as time went on, you know, Tanjiro was able to kind of like sync up more with Tengen, and they were able to kind of like push the older brother demon back into a corner. I thought that's cool because we know before at Mugen Train that, you know, Tanjiro was not able to kind of like, even though he was injured, even if he wasn't, he probably was not able to kind of like get into the middle of that sort of like high level 1v1, right? Whereas now we're starting to see him kind of like progress as far as like his skills and stuff. And he, even though he did have to be saved a few times, I feel, he is still able to kind of like be of assistance rather than be a complete liability. Whereas I feel like earlier on he would have probably just caused or gotten in the way of Rengoku, right? Whereas here he's actually trying to help out. And then a cool other scene we got of, I don't remember what all the wives' names were, but the one who he told to basically like leave because she was too exhausted or injured or whatnot. And I like that she kind of like comes back to help out, which is cool because it's kind of like because of how Tengen kind of like lived his life or whatnot, and he didn't treat them as like tools or expendable. They on their own kind of like help him out, you know, and he, even if they have to like, you know, push themselves further, possibly end up, you know, being killed themselves, which Tengen told them specifically not to do. They're willing to because they realize that like, or she specifically realizes that this is worth it because she doesn't want, she wants to help out Tengen as much as possible and doesn't want him to die, right? I thought that was pretty cool. And then they had the wisteria poison, right? We've seen that. We know that the wisteria doesn't, it like is something like a poison to them, or they could make like a poison to them, to like the demons, right? Because they can't really, I don't know what it is really with the wisteria, but it has some sort of like, you know, detrimental effect on their like regenerative system or whatnot. And it's cool that their the kunai were like laced with poison, because it's kind of like, you know, I mean, you think Shinobi and always they're using poison and whatnot. And then just that ending sequence with, you know, that whole teamwork, freaking Tengen going through the kunai. It's cool because they talk about his whole thing was like he does not want people like putting their lives before, or putting the mission before their lives, right? But this whole episode is literally people sacrificing their lives or putting their lives at risk because it's necessary and it's worth it, you know? And I feel like Tengen going through the kunai at the end there, it's kind of an interesting sort of like image, right? It seems very self-sacrifice rather than self-preserving. So we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen. We got a little bit more of Tengen's backstory. I would like to see a little bit more of the demon's backstory. I'm sure we're going to, because fight hasn't ended and we usually get something like that towards the end of the fight, possibly if we're going to win or whatnot. That's when we get like the sort of like backstory of the demons. I'm interested to see that. I'm also interested in this if this move is going to be the deciding move. I don't feel like it is. I don't know if there's anything of like a trump card as far as like what these demons have. So we'll have to see. But yeah, really good episode, really well animated. If you want to support us, like, subscribe. We have a Patreon that helps us out. But if not, that's okay. But that'll be it for this episode. Hopefully we'll see you guys in the next episode.